back to the Cultivate E.D.H podcast. I'm Aaron.
And I'm Cam, and today we've got our Jumpstart set review. We're going to be doing something a little different this time. Instead of going through painstakingly every single card, reprint and new card, evaluating whether it's good or not, whether we think it's good, whatever, we're just going to do the cards we're most excited for. Because we think that it's important for us to get our opinions out there more so than we already do when we're just evaluating the cards. So we're just going to do what we feel most excited for. So I'm going to kick it off. I put this first card on the list because I love blinking things. It's Emil the Blessed, 2 white for a 4/4 legendary unicorn. It has activated ability 3 colorless mana, exile another target creature you control, then return it to the battlefield under its owner's control. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, you may pay Hybrid Selesnya. If you do, put a +1/+1 counter on it. If it's a unicorn, put 2 +1/+1 counters on it instead. Now, I know back in the Theros Beyond Death set review when we were talking about Thassa Deep Dwelling, I said that there's no reason to play Conjurer's Closet when you can just play Thassa because it's an indestructible version of Conjurer's Closet. However, I have since come around on that because the redundancy that those two effects bring together is insane. When we're talking about like in a blink shell, like a Bant blink shell, something like that, which is what Emil fits into with Thassa and Conjurer's Closet. You have to be playing like a Bant shell. But having another Conjurer's Closet-like effect that I can just pay 3 mana for whenever I want, it's a mana sink as well. I mean, that's just kind of insane.
Yeah, the redundancy in decks is always kind of important. Sometimes you don't want to have too much redundancy because then your deck is very kind of non-focused in the sense of it's only doing one thing, and that thing isn't necessarily helping you win. But in this case, I do think that this is another good blink effect to have because not only is it repeatable as a mana sink, but it even boosts your creatures up a little bit if that's what you're choosing to blink. You're able to put some counters on it if you're blinking unicorns, which I don't know how many you would be blinking in this kind of deck, but you get 2 1/1 counters, so a nice little kind of tribal theme there.
Well, especially with the fact that it is a mana sink. So, like, as soon as I have infinite mana, I can sit there and blink my entire board. I can make my board bigger by 1 because you can't blink it and then put a counter on it and then blink it again because then the counter disappears. But it's like, I just think that the fact that it's a mana sink is so important that I think it actually kind of like raises itself above the Thassa Conjurer's Closet slot in the deck because it's repeatable, and as soon as I have infinite mana, then I'm set. I can sit there and blink my board all day long.
Yeah, and that is really one of the most important parts about this card is not only is it a mana sink, but it's also a colorless mana sink, which I think is really important to add there because it does have the Selesnya hybrid. It's a white card, but luckily you don't have to pay colored mana into that mana sink because then that would make it sometimes it's a little bit harder to generate infinite colored mana, and I think personally it's easier to generate infinite colorless, and so in that regard you're going to find it a lot easier to be able to use this mana sink super effectively in that way.
I could not agree more with that, based on the fact that it is a lot harder to generate colored mana, especially if you're not doing, like, probably the easiest way to generate infinite colored mana is the Deadeye Peregrine combo, where you just untap all your lands. But as a whole, I think you nailed it with the fact that it's a colorless mana sink. That is the reason why this card is going to be so good. Now, the next card on our list, Aaron, I know you put it there because it's a goblin, so I'll let you read it.
Oh boy, I'm so excited about this. Is Muxes Goblin Grandee for a red and a red. He's a legendary goblin noble. When Muxes Goblin Grandee enters the battlefield, reveal the top 6 cards of your library. Put all goblin creature cards with converted mana cost 5 or less from among them onto the battlefield and the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. And whenever Muxes attacks, it gets +1/+1 until end of turn for each other goblin you control. So there's so many things that I like about this card. The first thing is just getting goblins for free. I love getting creatures for free, and this does that quite well. And I think it's really interesting the CMC cost that they put here being 5 or less. The reason I think that's interesting is I really don't think that there are as many 5 plus, or actually it'd be 6 plus because it does include the 5 really like goblins. You're really not running that many high CMC goblins is what I'm getting at here. And so, you're revealing the top six cards, and 9 times out of 10 you're going to get a lot of those cards especially, goblin decks are just heavily centered around just those creatures that you're wanting to run, and using Cranko to double that number of goblins that you have. And not only that, then he boosts himself based on those goblins that you're throwing out there for free.
I think I'm really hard pressed right now to think of any goblin except for Muxes that's like over 6 mana. Most of them
Exactly.
are like what, 1 to 5 mana. Most of the lords are like 2-3 mana at most.
Yeah, and a lot of times the really good ones that you're running are like 4 mana or less, because you don't really have that ramp option in red. There's a couple of things where you might be able to get an extra mana on a turn, but you don't get a lot of true ramp in red really at all. So you're running a lot of low CMC cards in goblins, and this really just wants you to do that because you don't have a lot of lands generally because you have so much low CMC stuff, and you throw him out there. Chances are, I think you hit 2 to 3 goblins every single time you do that.
You know what card really synergizes with this card?
Please, Cameron, do tell.
Conjurer's Closet.
This is very true. Just being able to repeatedly use Mux's effect it would be just insane. And
I'm waiting. Because I know you're gonna put this card in your Cranko deck. I'm gonna like sit there and wait for the blowout where it's like I play Muxus and I reveal the top 6, and it's all goblins, and like the
then
value you get off of it is just insane.
everyone becomes instantly scared because now I have 6 extra goblins. I'm tapping Krenko, just doing a bunch of crazy stuff, and just I'm so excited about this card. I could sit here and talk about how excited I am about it all day, but I do think we can move on here. Cameron, why don't you read the next one for us?
All right, so I put this next one on the list because I think it's super cool. It's Innie as the Gale Forest. It's 3 blue for a 4/4 legendary creature. It's a Djinn, flying, 2 and an Azorius. Attacking creatures with flying get +1/+1 until the end of the turn. Whenever 3 or more creatures you control with flying attack, each player gains control of a non-land permanent of your choice controlled by the player to their right. I think this is really cool because at bare minimum, this kind of like gives blue-white skies deck or like a blue-white flyers deck a home more so than it had before. Like the Toon Azorius, like you can buff your attacking flyers that are already evasive, that are probably already going to get in there for damage. The creature really allows the flying deck to keep planeswalker decks in control because you want to be playing every turn that you're playing a creature, you want it to have flying. So you are going to put pressure on the planeswalker decks, which planeswalker decks are some of the harder decks to deal with in the commander format. So I think that this commander / deck is really good for that. But also, I just kind of like the aspect of like it's like Aminatu from Commander 2018, and then Pramicon from the last Commander product before Ikoria, the one last year, where like you're passing stuff around. So maybe you take the person's combo piece, like maybe it's their Isochron Scepter that they haven't gone off with yet. You take it and you give it to the player on their right so that they can't go off with it.
Yeah, there's just so many options in the terms of like theft and moving things around, and I've always really enjoyed kind of that theme. I even built a theft deck recently, and it becomes super interesting not only in the aspect of taking people's stuff, but the things that you're able to do once different people have cards that normally they wouldn't. And
Would you call this a theft deck though?
I
It,
wouldn't necessarily call it a theft deck, but it is in that mechanic where you're making people have cards that they normally wouldn't. But I don't know exactly what you would call that.
yeah, I don't know what I call it either.
Chaos maybe, but you're just shifting things around. There's
Yeah, I think
There's
it fits
actually,
more into the chaos aspect of like the chaos deck than maybe the theft deck.
yeah, but regardless, I still think a very fun mechanic, and it gives you potential to just deal more damage with flyers, which is great. I mean, I think that this is hopefully going to see some play. You know, it's not the most CEDH thing we've ever seen, but it's definitely going to be something fun to have in your local play group.
We're forgetting the most important part about this card, though. It's a Jhin. That's
It's
pretty
true.
cool.
It's true. We don't see a lot of those, honestly.
Jhin Tribal 2020, here I come. Aaron, I'll let you read the next card.
All right, so the next thing we got here is Brubeck the Grand Eloquent. For 2 and a blue, he's a 1/4 human advisor, and if an opponent would mill 1 or more cards, they mill twice that many cards instead. So the reason that I put this on the list wasn't so much of saying like, "Oh, it's the best commander in the world." I am excited about this card, but it is the first commander that we've gotten that actually has the keyword mill on it. That's something that has been pretty new here from that Wizards of the Coast have given us in the way of keywords, and it's something that the community has used for a while, but it's never been printed on a card until now.
This is one of the cards that I'm going to let resolve, and then I'm going to die to.
I could see that happening. Of just mill player, they come in like turn 2, turn 3, play this, and you're like, they're not milling us yet. It's not that big of a deal. And the next thing we know, our libraries are empty. We're like, now we're kind of silly. It's egg on our face of letting that resolve,
Yeah, so
But
like they curve out at turn 3 and play Brubeck, and then they curve out on turn 5 and play the one spell that lets you a target player puts the top half of their library into the graveyard, because I do believe it's called Traumatize. It's like 5 mana. I do believe that it was ruled that if you traumatize somebody with Brubeck on the battlefield, they put their entire library into the graveyard.
that it would be very much a feels bad of just it's turn 5, maybe turn 4 if they've ramped a little bit, and someone's library is gone.
I just know that I'm gonna be like, it's a mono blue deck. They can't have that many stuff, like that much stuff that mills, and then I'm gonna get hit with like a combo like that, and it's gonna be like, oh well, I should have countered it, or I should have gotten rid of him.
But yeah, so overall, I'm quite excited to see what people do with this card, and I think it's cool that we finally see mill as a keyword.
I would agree.
Like,
I think milling as a keyword is a pretty cool thing.
so with that, Cameron, you wanna read us the next card here?
Now, this next card is the new legendary creature that I'm most excited for. It's Neath of the Dire Hunt. 2 green for a legendary human warrior. She's a 3/3. Whenever one or more creatures you control fight or become blocked, you get to draw a card. At the beginning of combat on your turn, you may pay 2 and a hybrid gruel. If you do, double target creature's power until the end of the turn. That creature must be blocked this combat if able. So you're gonna pay the 2 and a gruel, or pay the 2 and a hybrid gruel, force or double the power of your biggest creature, force them to block and draw a card. That's pretty potent.
You know what deck I'm already seeing this in?
Is it my Xenagos deck?
Absolutely, I was thinking Xenagos Stompy.
See, now, like, I think that's interesting, is because, like, it goes so well in just, like, the Xenagos deck already, but then there's also, like, this, like, if you build around Neath herself, there's this, like, cool fight tribal thing you can do. I really like that. I really like the idea of fight tribal.
Yeah, it's definitely something we haven't seen a whole lot of before, and I am really interested to see what people do with this. Do you think it will be not necessarily CEDH, but do you think she has potential to be top tier?
I don't think so. I don't think it's nearly, like, it's not nearly a top tier. Like, I don't think that if you build the Neath deck, I don't even know if the Neath deck can compete with the Xenagos deck, because the Xenagos deck gives trample. All this does is just double the power, and it requires it to be blocked. So all you really do is you're doing the same thing as casting a kill spell on that creature. Basically, for 3 mana, you're doing the same thing. You're not, like, getting the value out of it unless Neath is in the Xenagos deck. Xenagos is on the battlefield. You pump target creature's power, or you give it, like, +X+X, where X is the greatest power among creatures you control. Because I think I think they both trigger on at the beginning of combat, so you might be able to stack it so that Naeth doubles the power of target creature, and then you can stack it so Xenagos goes on the stack, and then it gets +X+X, where X is the greatest power among creatures you control, which is presumably whatever you doubled with Naeth, and then you make it fight, and then it has trample. So I think maybe Naeth goes in the Xenagos deck more than you would ever build a Naeth deck on the side. Not that you can't do it, but I do think that she has a very good home in the Xenagos deck.
Yeah, that's some really good insight there. I definitely agree with you that she is better in the 99 than as the commander. And I think that overall, she's going to be one of the biggest combo pieces in that deck, and she's going to be a must-have in those Xenagos Stompy decks.
100%.
So I think with that, we'll move to our last card here from the new commanders, and that is Kells Fight Fixer. 2 and 2 black. She's an Azrael Warlock Menace. Whenever you sacrifice a creature, you may pay a hybrid Dimir. If you do, draw a card. And for 1, you can sacrifice a creature, and Kells Fight Fixer gains indestructible until end of turn.
Now
I think that.
Oh, you go ahead, Aaron.
I think that this card is going to be a really interesting addition to a lot of the aristocrat decks that are already out there. I don't know if it's necessarily going to be a commander, but I do see it in the 99 100%. Being able to sacrifice things and just pay 1 to draw some cards is fantastic. And you know who she kind of reminds me of a little bit with that sacrificing to get indestructible? She reminds me of Yahenni from, I believe, Ether Revolt. And he was a pretty powerful card just in general, not necessarily in Commander in different formats, but I know that he had seen a lot of play, and I think she's going to see kind of the same type of play, because not only can she give herself indestructible, but she also has menace, and she can draw you cards. She's the whole package.
I would agree with that. And I know some listeners out there are probably shocked to hear that I am not actually the one who put this on the list. And I only, because I'm the resident Aristocrats player, I only didn't put her on the list is because she's blue-black. And I think that having blue in your Aristocrats deck is kind of detrimental to the deck itself. The only real Aristocrats shell that I can even conceive of her going in the 99 is like a Brea Ethereum Shaper 4-color Aristocrats deck, because if you go to EDH Rec, the top Aristocrats commanders don't have blue in them at all. It's blue-white, blue-green, or mono-black. So I think having blue is kind of detrimental to this card, as powerful as blue is, just because like usually in Aristocrats deck you have tokens to sacrifice, or you have reoccurring creatures to sacrifice, and you're going to get that from the black aspect of Kells Fight Fixer. So I think maybe if you're... I don't think she goes in the 99. I definitely think that she is the commander of the deck you're going to build around her, and you focus maybe more on a mono-black aspect of Kells Fight Fixer, because it is a hybrid Dimir. So you don't have to put any blue cards in your deck. You can just build Kells Fight Fixer mono-black.
Yeah, that'll be something kind of interesting to see what people decide to do with this deck. I think that it does have potential maybe as a commander. I'm not, because I don't play Aristocrats myself, I'm not 100% sure. It's not the forefront of my knowledge. But overall, I think she does have some really good potential, whether in the 99 or as a commander. And I'm excited to see what happens with this card.
Oh, she 100% has potential as the commander. That's like I don't want to say it's not arguable, but it's pretty clear that she does have potential as a commander. But the thing is she doesn't slot into any other deck, so it's really hard to argue that she goes in the 99 of any deck, because there's not that many Aristocrats deck that play blue.
Yeah, so if you guys make a Kells Fight Fixer deck. Send us those deck lists. I want to see what people do with this. I'm quite intrigued. If you guys go more the mono black route, or if you throw some blue in there for maybe some extra card draw or something like that. I am very curious. So send us those deck lists. Let us see what you guys come up with. And I think with that we will move on to our next section here. We're gonna move away from the commanders and just go to some of our favorite new cards, kind of in the non-legendary area. Cameron, you want to kick us off with our first one?
Okay, so I put this card on the list because I think it's flavorful, and it's kind of a callback to another card. It's RKO Mender, and I'm glad I pronounced that correct because I almost called it Archaeomancer, which is what it's kind of riffing off of. When RKO Mender enters the battlefield, return target artifact card from your graveyard to your hand. I think this is going to be a staple in the artifact decks because how many times have you been playing an artifact deck and you're gonna like combo out or something, or maybe you just have a really big artifact creature or something, somebody destroys it using a destroyed artifact spell, and you can just be like, bam, I got this RKO Mender, I'm gonna get that back, and then I'm gonna play it.
Cameron, if you want to get your artifacts back, just play Glissa. That's what I did. I get my stuff back all the time.
My skin is crawling right now just listening to you say that.
But yeah, as far as the blue red, or maybe the 4 colors in for Brea, for those artifact decks, I'm quite excited. This is a really cool card, and I think it's gonna see just so much play. It's so useful, and
very useful and very ubiquitous. I really like the versatility that it brings.
Yeah, because especially with some of those artifacts where you have to sacrifice them to use them. You're gonna get an extra use out of it with your RKO Mender.
Exactly, and there's another card in this set. It's Ether Spellbomb, I believe, where it's you can pay a blue and sacrifice it to bounce a creature, or you can pay a blue to sacrifice it and draw a card. Even if you're getting one of if you're playing an RKO Mender at any point in the game and you're targeting an Ether Spellbomb to get back, you must be in a pretty good position to just well, I might as well have this thing on the battlefield that can take care of a problem attacker, or just draw me a card if I really need it.
Yeah, I think that there's just so much versatility here.
I would agree. Let's move on to the next card that I also put on the list because it's a life gain card, and I obviously love life gain because I have a Krav Regna life gain deck. It's Witch of the Moors, 3 black for a 4/4 human warlock, death touch at the beginning of your end step. If you gained life, not X amount of life, it's just life in general, each opponent sacrifices a creature and you return up to 1 target creature from your graveyard to your hand. That's nuts. Because it is not hard in Commander to gain life.
Cameron, you know what scares me even more? It's really easy to give things lifelink. You give this thing lifelink, even if it's your only creature. Death touch lifelink, you can swing anywhere, and I think generally death touch for people is one of the more scary keyword abilities, because just having the thought of if I block this creature, whatever I block it with is just gone. And it's a 4/4, so it's not like you can block it with a chump blocker to get rid of it. You gotta block it with something pretty beefy to be able to get rid of this thing. And if you give this lifelink, and it's just gonna be bad.
Well, if you give it lifelink and then they chump block it, you gain 3. If they chump block it with a 1/1, you gain 4 life.
Yeah, and then they're sacrificing a creature and you're returning a creature from your graveyard to your hand. It just once this creature has lifelink, you're gonna be probably. I think you're gonna get a huge target on your back. Honestly,
I don't even think that necessarily the lifelink aspect. If you just give this creature lifelink, have you noticed in the past year and a half how they just staple life you can get this effect +2 life or something like that.
Yeah, they have thrown that on a lot of different things, and that with that in mind. It makes any time they print something that says if you gain life, it makes those cards so much stronger because they love letting us gain life.
It's just so I don't even know back in let's say Commander 2015, just as a random date. I don't even know if it was as easy to gain life back then as it is now. Because now it's just sure, you can have a destroy target artifact card and gain 3 life.
Yeah, exactly. There's so much stuff that's just, you're going to draw a card. Oh, and you're going to gain 4 life just while you're at it. And there's just so much stuff where they just threw a little bit of life gain on there just to give it like a little bit of extra value, which is not a bad thing. And but now they're giving us cards to say, hey, remember how we stapled life gain onto some of those cards? Well, here's something you can use that'll just really benefit off of those.
Yeah, well, here's your payoff for not in addition to making it harder for your opponents to kill you. Well, here now we're gonna make your opponents sacrifice a creature in addition to making it harder to kill you.
Just and which in turn makes it even harder to kill you because now they have less creatures.
Exactly. That's why this card is so good.
I'm so excited about which of the Moors. I probably would have put it on this list myself, but you beat me to it.
Okay, Aaron, you go ahead and read the next card because I know I can see it in my mind's eye what deck this is going in of yours.
Oh, absolutely. So we got Scholar of the Lost Trove for 5, a blue and a blue. It's flying. When Scholar of the Lost Trove enters the battlefield, you may cast target instant, sorcery, or artifact card from your graveyard without paying its mana cost. If it's an instant or sorcery spell, cast it this way. If an instant or sorcery spell cast this way would be put into your graveyard, exile it instead. I've probably talked about this deck a handful of times. It's going into my Is-It deck. I'm gonna be just taking so many turns, doing it for free, having fun. I'm so excited for this card.
See now. Oh no, go ahead. You finish your thought.
I think the only main drawback here is that it itself is 7 mana already, and a lot of those extra turn effects are generally 6-7 mana, somewhere up there in the higher CMC. So I really am paying retail value, but I'm also getting a 5/5 flyer, and I'm getting the extra use of those extra turn effects. So it's still very good, even though I am still paying retail on those extra turns. It's still fantastic.
You know what I really kind of want to do? Because Flash is obviously banned in the Commander format now. I really like when I saw this card. I'm like, I kind of want to flash this out. Like I kind of want to flash it out, get my extra turn spell for free, and then like I don't care if it dies.
Yeah, because now you're paying
2 mana for an extra turn spell.
Yeah, and unfortunately they have since banned Flash, but maybe in 60 card or something like that we'll be able to play around with it a little bit and get some good value off of the Scholar of the Lost Trove here. Now this next card, Cameron, I know how excited you are about this. Anytime Cameron sees a new pirate, he just gets excited. So Cameron, why don't you tell us about the next card here?
Okay, so we've got Corsair Captain, 2 and a blue, 2/2 human pirate, enters the battlefield, you get a treasure token. Other pirates you control get a +1/+1 counter. Or get +1/+1, it's not a counter. The reason I put this on the list is because in my Blink deck, I play a couple different pirates that give you a treasure token when they ETB. So I figured, well, maybe I play Corsair Captain because now I'm going to net mana and then I'm going to make my pirates bigger, which would the Corsair Captain unfortunately gives it to other pirates, so he himself does not get the +1/+1 and does not come with 3/3. But I think that maybe it's the top portion of the text that we're going to focus on here is the enters the battlefield, I get a treasure. It's already better than some of the other cards that I run just to get treasure tokens so that when I repeatedly get those ETB triggers, I'm just racking up the mana instead of playing like Smothering Tithe where I'm relying on my opponents to like not pay the 2. So I think the Corsair Captain, I'm going back and forth on it whether or not it's going to get into the deck or not. But overall, I still think it's pretty good.
Aaron's just secretly building Pirate Tribal, and he's not telling us until it's done.
Yeah, it's going to be Blink Pirate Tribal.
That's what's happening here. He's just not going to tell us until 60 of his cards are pirates and the rest are lands, and they're like, something's happened.
And I'm not playing Beckett Brass, or whatever her name is.
Yeah. The next card we got here, Immolating Gyre for 4, a red and a red. It deals X damage. It's a sorcery. Deals X damage to each creature and planeswalker you don't control, where X is the number of instant and sorcery cards in your graveyard.
Does this get into Melik?
It's gonna be close, I think. I don't run too much burn, but this is one of those burn cards where I think it may just be worth it because I can conceivably board wipe with that pretty easily and pretty frequently. And a lot of times that is one of the drawbacks for Melik is I my opponents have a lot of creatures, and I'm not getting my extra turns fast enough to where I'm staying ahead of them. And so I think that this will help me clear the board and give me a little room to breathe while I try to go off. So I definitely am going to pick this card up, put it in there, and see what I can do. And I will let you guys know.
Well,
But
I'm just thinking like so if this is on the top with Melik, top of your library, you cast it. Let's say you have 5 instant sorcerers in your graveyard. You're going to deal 5 to each creature you don't control and each planeswalker you don't control. But then you're going to copy it, so you get to deal 10.
yeah, and that's going to kill almost everything most of the time. You know, unless people have just massive creatures, maybe in like in Xenago Stompy, maybe you got like a 13/13 that I'm not quite killing yet, but still overall, yeah, that's and sometimes I even am copying things like 2 or 3 times because of different copy effects that I have in that deck. And this is gonna be one of those cards that I definitely want to just copy as many times as I can to make sure that everything's gone.
Oh, I wish it was an instant so bad, because then it would get into Calamax so easily, and I'd get to copy it like 50 times.
Yeah, and for that reason, I'm kind of glad that it's not an instant because I've already seen how powerful that Calamix deck can be. But I mean, it's not going to be that hard to give this card Flash. There's so many things out there that can do that for you. So I am quite excited to see what I can do with Emulating Gyre. And I think that'll take us to our last card here from our new card list. It's actually one of the cards that I don't know that I'll be using a lot of, but I definitely see the potential here. And we got Towering Titan for 4 a green and a green. Enters the battlefield with X 1/1 counters on it, where X is the total toughness of creatures you control. And you sacrifice a creature with Defender. All creatures gain trample until end of turn. It starts as a 0/0. This is slotting into people's wall decks so quickly. I'm already seeing the line and the potential of this giant just cleaning house in wall decks, just throwing it down and having, even if you have like 4 or 5 walls down, which is really easy through wall decks. I mean, a lot of them have 4+ toughness. So you got, let's say you got 4/0/5s, you got 5, 10, you got 20. You got 20 power toughness on this Titan. It's just, it's gonna be kind of scary. I'm not gonna lie. It's gonna just punch people really hard.
Well, obviously we're saying this because there is a player in our play group who plays walls, and it's already a very good deck, and I think this Towering Titan getting in there is just like, it's taking it up one notch. It's going from like a 7 to an 8 once Towering Titan gets in that deck.
Yeah, and that deck is generally pretty hard to deal with a lot of times. Just the walls come out so quickly, and you know, and some of those walls are already pretty. They punch pretty hard. Just because when that toughness turns into power, and now you got Towering Titan coming into the mix, and it's gonna very easily get trample. It should be interesting for all you wall players out there to pick this card up and just smash some face.
Alright, let's move on to our reprint category. First up, everybody's favorite enchantment, Rhystic Study. 2 and a blue. Whenever your opponent casts a spell, you may draw a card unless they pay the 1. Obviously, just a super good reprint.
Who doesn't love Rhystic Study? I remember when I first picked up Rhystic Study, the next game that I played, I probably drew like at least a third of my library with Rhystic Study. And now we'll be able to see it even more of people being able to pick it up, because once a card gets reprinted, it's a lot easier for people to pick up, and I'm really excited about that because there are, as you guys will hear quite as we're going through this list, there are a lot of really good reprints that we're getting, and this is one of them that's kind of at the forefront of good reprints.
Expensive reprints, too.
Indeed.
Alright, up next we got Exquisite Blood, 4 and a black, for an enchantment that says whenever you lose life, whenever an opponent loses life, you gain that much life. I'm thinking of Sanguine Bond.
It does combo with Sanguine Bond.
Does combo with Sanguine Bond. pretty well.
Yeah, and this is another just card that people really want to be playing in those life gain decks, but is a little more on the expensive side. So people who are running more budget decks haven't really been able to do. So maybe now it'll go down in price a little bit, and people will be able to pick it up. And it's just such a good value card in any life gain deck. And I'm just excited to see people running it. I mean it's gonna hurt when they're using it against me, but
It's a
you know what?
powerhouse, all right. And
Yeah, speak.
I think Exquisite Blood has never been reprinted outside of its original printing. I think maybe
Yeah,
it got a Judge promo, but I do not think it was ever reprinted.
yeah. I think you're right on that. And so it is. It's always exciting when something that doesn't really get reprints ever hasn't before gets a reprint because it makes you it's Wizard tapping you on the back saying, "Hey, we didn't forget about these powerful cards here. You guys can play with it even more now." And that's just really good to see.
I would agree. Aaron, why don't you go ahead and read our next card?
Yeah, yeah. We were speaking of powerhouses. We got a big powerhouse here. Everyone's favorite beast, Crater Hoof Behemoth, with 5 and triple green. Got your haste, and when he enters the battlefield, creatures you control gain trample and plus X, where X is the number of creatures you control. I mean, just one of the biggest powerhouses in green that is always scary and people always love to see. I'm excited to hopefully pull this card or buy it or however I obtain Crater Hoof Behemoth. Just a good card.
It's a very good card. It's the classic big green finisher. It's obvious going to get into your Xenagos decks. It's going to get into your Neath decks if you build a Neath deck. Just a super good card in general. Like, excited to see it reprinted here. Because obviously, I think the past 3 cards we've covered are all I'm not sure about Ristic Study. I don't think Ristic Study is like over $30, but I know that Exquisite Blood and Crater Hoof were both over $40.
Yeah, and something that I really like about the cards being reprinted here, not only are just a good solid reprints, but the decks that they're being put in, they're working so well. I love the design of these Jumpstart decks. I think it's going to be something that's going to be really fun for people to be able to do if people are kind of getting an intro to Magic. This is going to be a really good way to start that. Just a really good and interesting set that they've come up with here. The next card on our list, Rise of the Dark Realms, of the one of the bigger black powerhouses, especially in the reanimation area. We got 7 black. Put all creature cards from all graveyards onto the battlefield under your control.
All
It's
graveyards! All graveyards!
every graveyard. Your graveyard. I get all your graveyards.
You get a graveyard. You get a graveyard!
No, I get your graveyard.
Yeah.
But yeah, just another solid reprint, and I think it's in the Liliana deck, and just the really spicy flavor. Just very, very fun. I can't stress enough how interesting and how fun I think the Jumpstart is going to be.
This is one of the cards from like when Commander first became a thing back in like 2013, I believe. 2013 was the first Commander Precon, but I think this card goes like way back to the beginning of our format, where like this was one of the original like finishers. Like you'd get to the end of the game and then you just cast Rise of the Dark Realms and you kill your opponents with all the creatures, or you would like cast Insurrection. So, like, the thing is, like, Insurrection's not really playable anymore. So part of me wonders if maybe Rise of the Dark Realms isn't playable anymore.
I wouldn't say that it's not playable anymore. I think that Rise of the Dark Realm still finds homes. Sometimes it's a little bit tougher. I think because we've seen more of the rise of combo decks and things like that, where people are not really playing as many creatures. They're really just winning off of different spells. So it does make that a little bit harder to use. But I think overall we're still seeing enough creature heavy decks where this still gets really solid value.
I I'd have to agree. It's just that part of me that wonders, like some of these older cards from like the beginning of Commander have really fallen out of favor. You can't help but wonder whether or not like this card that goes all the way back to the beginning, whether or not maybe it too isn't enough anymore. But obviously, if you look at the text on the card and you resolve it, like you should be winning the game. If you're not, then good luck.
Yeah, because at that point, if you're not winning the game off this, now everyone's like, you have poked the bear, and the bear is coming after you. And that's why you really, with a lot of these finisher cards, like if you're not winning, you need to go on the defensive real quick.
So what you do is you just take your life pad and you flip it over and you play dead.
Ah, perfect.
GG, easy game.
The last card we got here, Cameron, why don't you read that for us?
Alright, so we've got Oracle Maldaya, 3 and a green for a 2/2 Elf Shaman. You may play an additional land on each of your turns, play with the top card of your library revealed, and you can play lands from the top of your library. We have been asking for this reprint for, 2.5 years now?
Yeah, something like that. That sounds about right. And I'm happy to see it being reprinted. We've asked for it and we have received, which is always nice to see. Wizard responding to our prayers, answering them and saying, "Here you go. We will finally give you guys what you have been asking for."
Now, funny enough, Oracle Maldaya is also like Exquisite Blood. It was never reprinted outside of its original printing in Zendikar block.
Wow.
All the way back in like 2008, I believe.
Yeah, and I really, as I said before, I love seeing Wizards print cards that haven't gotten them before, because especially when it comes to the terms of new players. New players probably haven't really had the exposure and chance to see some of these cards. So for Wizards to bring them back and say, here's what Magic used to be like, and here's some of the stuff kind of from our heritage. I love seeing new players get their hands on these cards and be like, man, this is really powerful. And I'm like, yep, this is what Magic is. This is Magic at its finest.
I'd have to agree. This is classic Magic, classic Commander. I'm just all the different cards that we've had that mess with the top of the library that are like Commander staples, like Narset or like Melik, obviously stuff that just plays at the top of the library. This is obviously a staple in lands decks that are people just love to play lands decks in Commander.
Yeah, and it's gonna make it so much easier for people to get. We had one of our Planeswalker decks was land based, and this is gonna be just an easy staple for that. So, just again, solid reprints, and I am quite excited to see people playing Jumpstart and then using the cards that they get and throwing into their Commander decks and just having a lot of fun.
All right, let's move to our closer now, so if Jumpstart is full of all these good cards, all these new fun cards, all these really good reprints that are good for the Commander format, then why does it kind of feel like that it's doomed to fail? I think number one is the global pandemic, because it has run its course on Wizards of the Coast and on like the production of cards. Obviously, like workers in the warehouse obviously can't safely get their jobs done, so it's pushed the date back. Obviously, so for those of you who don't know, it has been confirmed that Jumpstart is an unlimited print run. They are going to print it to demand. However, Wizards of the Coast has suspended all in-store play through September.
Yeah, and that's really, really tough for Magic as a whole, and obviously this pandemic has not been kind to our local game stores. So once you guys are able and people are able to start going to their game stores again, show your game stores some love. They've been through a tough time, and they're really going to need that love to get back on their feet and be able to continue to bring you guys the product that you love.
I think the biggest issue that at least obviously I obviously want our local game store to stay open. That's pressing concern number one. So again, support your local game store. But on top of that, I also want these cards to become available so that I can buy them from my local game store. The issue with that is that where I know that our local game store will buy boxes of cards to open and then put them in like binders for people to like, or singles for people to buy. You know, I don't think that it was ever scheduled, even if Wizards didn't shut down in-store play, that there was ever going to be a pre-release event for this set. And then now local game stores also cannot hold like pre-release-esque events or release events for Jumpstart. So I feel like this product is relying solely on pre-order and like sealed box purchases, you know? So like that's the only way that these cards are going to get out there.
Yeah, and that's definitely not what you want to see from a set like this. You know, you really want your stores to be able to grab these and set them out for people to enjoy, for people to come and pick up just pack by pack, whatever it may be. But you know, unfortunately, with the pandemic going on, it's made that a lot harder, and so it definitely will be tough. But I think once, you know, all this kind of gets cleaned up, however long that may take, I do think this is going to be a good way for people to kind of come back to Magic a little bit, of being able to just grab 2 packs and throw them together and play a game with their friends.
And then, like, on top of that, though, there's the fact that, so the way that this set is structured, you get, I believe you're supposed to buy 2 booster packs, and then you shuffle them together to make a deck, and then you play a quick game with somebody. Well, each booster pack is themed. There's a theme to each booster pack. So, I do know that the Phyrexian and the Unicorn themed boosters are the rarest out of all of them, and I think they appear like once every other box. So that's going to hurt, like, obviously Emil the Blessed that we talked about first. Like, that's going to hurt the card supply for that card. And then some of these other, like, I believe there's an elf themed booster. Well, Oracle Maldaya is an elf and is the rare in one of the 5 different elf packs that you can get. So, like, not only are you not guaranteed to get Oracle Maldaya in your elf pack, it's only, like, Oracle Maldaya is only going to be, like, in one of every other box in one booster pack.
Yeah, and that's the thing that I was a little bit concerned with this set at first, was just kind of it's, you know, it's random, but it's also not, in a way, and it's kind of a weirdly formatted, but I think that it still has the potential, but you know, with people not being able to go into their stores and play, it makes it a lot harder for this to gain the ground that it deserves.
I agree. And I think just since it is an unlimited print run, I think that most of us what we should be doing is we should be going into our local game stores. If they have the singles available, buy the singles from your local game store. If they don't, buy a couple packs, buy a box if you're able to. Whatever we can do to support our local game stores in this time is what we should be doing to help them out.
Absolutely, and I think that's the biggest point that you guys should be taking away from this, is just go and support your game stores as much as you can. I mean, I really cannot stress that enough.
Yeah, it's like the professor always says, spend your money where you play Magic, and that's at your local game store. Not to say that you shouldn't be giving your money to Amazon or Walmart, all of these places, but if you have a local game store and you go in there and you play Friday Night Magic, or you go in there for Commander on Friday or Saturday night if they hold them on different nights or on the same night as FNM, whatever, support your local game stores.
And I think with that, we can come to a close. Thank you everyone so much for joining us, and I hope you guys enjoyed this set as much as we do, and we will see you guys next time.